What is going on, everybody? John here with Introverse Uncharted, and it is January 9th, 2025. It has been almost 2 months since I have come to you via the airwaves of YouTube. And the last time I did, it was for a space activity update all about Starship IFT-6 and what happened on that day. And today I am back with a space activity update as we approach IFT-7 happening no earlier than January 13th, 2025. Come with me into the Uncharted for this Uncharted space activity update.
Ignition sequence start. Six, five, four, three, two, one, zero. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hello, hello, hello. Isn't it good to see that intro video again? Man, I always love that intro video. It's one of obviously my favorites that I've done. Anything that you guys see production level wise when it comes to that kind of stuff is very literally me putting together intro videos and copyright free music and all sorts of stuff like that. So it's always fun to be able to do those. And I love the intro to the space activity updates and just the space in general. The space video is always like the Introverse Uncharted intro, which is really cool and I love having it. There's a new one on the horizon, not for this show and not for sports. Sports and entertainment does have an updated version, but it's still kind of in the same spectrum. I haven't gotten to use it yet, but this one stays the same. Space activity update gets sports and entertainment gets an update, and then there's a new one. There's a new one that's going to be happening probably in the next couple of days. You guys will see it for the very first time. I'm excited about it. I think that it looks really cool. A little cheesy, but really cool. Now, before we get into the Uncharted space activity update that you are all here for, let's talk about catching us up on the socials, doing all the stuff that we're supposed to do. You know how it is, right? Um, God only knows if TikTok is going to be present 10 days from now on the 19th. But for the time being, run on over to TikTok and check me out at Introverse Uncharted. That's always a magical place to see me. It's one of the few places that I actually do things on a regular, not even regular. I'm trying to get more regular on on socials in general, but TikTok is probably where I do the most that isn't here on YouTube. So at introverse underscore uncharted on TikTok, go check it out for as long as you can, because God only knows if it's gonna go away. Outside of that, Instagram and Threads at introverse underscore uncharted 13. That's going to be a good place to find me if the tickety tockety does go bang. And Facebook at introverse uncharted. You can find me just our page there. Like that page, follow that page, and you'll get updates on when we're going to put out new content. That's kind of the stick. We have a an X account too at introverse underscore u. I don't use it as frequently, and honestly, probably have the least amount of interactions with my content there. So you're welcome to go on over there and check. I still drop all the updates over there as well, just to do it. But um, there's also talks, obviously, of places like Blue Sky, which is supposed to be a better uh Twitter. I haven't used it yet, but there's a chance that that happens. There's an app called Clapper, which is very similar to TikTok, a little bit more unhinged, but it is very similar. So there might be some stuff going on there in the coming weeks, so I can do that. TikTok also likes to try to push people towards Lemonade, but I don't know anything about it yet. So until those days come, right now you can find me on old reliable Facebook, uh, Instagram and Threads, on X if you really, 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 really want to, and then tickety tockety until tickety tockety goes bang, if it goes bang. All of those were probably up here the whole time because post production John already knows what he's doing, right? That's the good news. All right, we got the housekeeping out of the way. And before we dive deep into the space activity update, you guys know I always try to be like, oh, this is not going to be a long episode. And then it ends up being like 30 minutes long. So I apologize. But it's been a minute since I've seen you guys. So I just want to say Happy New Year. And I hope that everything finds you well. I might even just make a Happy New Year's salute video from Introverse Uncharted from mine to yours kind of a situation. But it's good to have you guys back. It's good to be back. I've been itching to do this. I'm one of those guys who made half a zillion New Year's resolutions, and this was one of them was to nail the podcast, start to get some traction going, and hopefully, uh, have some fun with it end of the year. Do I think I'm ever gonna get famous off of this? Absolutely not. But do I have a good time doing it? I sure do. I always procrastinate. I'm that guy. Gets in my head, and then I don't want to do anything, and then it gets all cluttered. But the notebook is back. We went legal pad this year. That's how we went with our notes this year. Legal pad. I like it. Um, and I'm looking forward to doing this with you guys. Again, January 9th, 2025. My son turns 6 today, and today we're going to dive in to a space activity update because it has been since, let me see, I have it pulled up. November 26th of 2024 was my last upload, and that was just following IFT 6, where booster went bang bang in the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America. I don't know what we're calling it now. Who knows? Um, and then ship obviously did everything it was supposed to do, landed on its trajectory, all sorts of the goody goody. All right, goody goody. Let's talk about what's coming up. Right, SpaceX has officially said that IFT 7 will be no earlier than January 13th. That's Monday at 4 p.m. Central. It'll be 3 p.m. Mountain Time. You know me. If I have the possibility of going live or trying to do something for it, I absolutely will. But we're gonna see kind of as it gets closer. Weather has been kind of crazy between Colorado and Texas in general, or whatever. So um, it's been wet and damp every time I check on the Starbase Live from NASA spaceflight. So I assume that they're kind of in hold on trying to figure out what all is going on. But what I can say as of right now is that the hardware is at the pad, and we will get down to that here in just a few moments. Let's start with the stuff that isn't as prominent necessarily, right? Let's start with Pad B. Pad B, deep under construction, has been for a long time now. They still said not probably operational till mid summer of 2025. But the chopstick installation kit is on site and being built. So that's good news. It means that they're going to be looking to install chopsticks in the carriage here very, very soon. The physical chopsticks are still not at the launch site and still have scaffolding and stuff going on. So I assume that there is still some work going on with those. But also, numerous other subcoolers and piping have been seen being worked on. And I'm really unsure at this point whether or not those are specifically for Pad B or if they're just going to be additives to the current and running tank farm that will probably be seeing used on both pads regardless of the situation. I assume that the likeliness of them having anything just specifically for pad B is pretty slim, but what is probably going to happen is those tubes and those subcoolers are going to have to kind of be at the midway point to branch off to both launch pads is probably the situation that we're looking at, but we won't know until they start being installed. Um, we've gotten a peek at Booster 15. Booster 15 during the week of Christmas made its way down to the Massey's test site and got to go through its cryo testing. It is now back up at the Mega Bay, where they will do engines, grid fins, and hot stage ring, which is still the things that it is currently missing. After the installation of those, I assume test campaigns will begin, but the test campaign is going to need an empty pad. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. Ship 36 was also being seen in the Star Factory. Its nose cone and heat shield are almost complete at this point. They've been putting a lot of work in to try to get that going. And then ships 37, 38, 39, their nose cones are all being built. No thermal tiles yet, but you can see them. They are there, they are present, and that means that starships are just going to keep churning. We are into Block B starships now, so a little bit taller, a little bit more fuel capacity. We'll talk about some of these upgrades here in a little bit. A little more fuel capacity, little less cargo capacity, but it's not as bad as you think it would be just to lower the cargo. And honestly, by upping the fuel, the missions can now get longer, which, if you know what we're saying, Mars is probably why those things are happening. And there's also like I'm pretty sure Elon has talked about doing a V3 Starship as well, which is even taller and has even more fuel capacity. That one, if I have to guess, is likely the Mars model, the one that they want to go the longest distance and do the longest journey, needs the most fuel. That's probably what we're looking at. Now let's shift back to the things that we know, the things that we have absolutely seen already, right? And that's Pad A. Pad A, the original launch pad, has been essentially refabricated following IFT 6. It has been partially repainted, which is not of any surprise. They generally try to repaint it after every single launch. The scaffolding has been removed from the top, and that was following the B14 roll. Again, we'll talk about hardware at the pad here in just a moment. They've done limited work on the chopsticks, which from all of the websites and stuff that I follow is being deemed as a good thing. So if they're not necessarily focusing in on it, and they're gonna probably, I'm gonna say probably, but they're going to go for another catch attempt, given that all of the criteria are met on this next flight. So chances are what you're gonna be looking at is if they're not doing any work on it, it's because there doesn't need to be any work done on it. So that's probably good news at this point in time. Obviously, that thing hasn't left the pad yet, so hardware is present, as I've said, but that doesn't mean that there isn't still work to be done, and they're still hard at work down in Boca Chica trying to get that thing ready to go. Um, December 31st, the very last day of 2024, they did work and inspections on the chopsticks. Those are completed, and we haven't heard any negatives come out of it yet. So the assumption is those chopsticks are good to go and ready to do a catch attempt for Flight 7, given the appropriate criteria. The booster quick disconnect was also repaired following. It just looked a little beat up following IFT6, and I assume that they had some sort of issue with it, but it has been completely rectified. And SpaceX says that the booster quick disconnect is a-okay and good to go. Now, on a side note, down at the McGregor testing facility, a Raptor 3 engine was spotted by NSF does a flyover of a lot of these outboard test sites, including McGregor. Um, during their uh, during their flyover, they saw a Raptor with a number 4 on the side of it. That's the serial number used on that specific model, and it was on the horizontal test mount. Now, I got that information day before yesterday. Yesterday there was a RUD, a rapid unscheduled disassembly of a Raptor 3 engine at McGregor. So I don't know for sure that it is the exact same one that was present at the horizontal test stand, but the assumption is that it is. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. RUDs in the test facilities are not always a bad thing. Sometimes what SpaceX is doing and what they might have been trying to do in this instance is they might have been trying to see what the limit on this new motor was. So they might have just been absolutely pushing it, trying to get every ounce of juice that it could get, and then it rud. It happens. It definitely happens, especially with engine testing. It didn't happen in the air, and that is really what is important. So hopefully, assuming that those two things were the exact same thing, hopefully they did a just a max stress test essentially, and they got great solid information out of it. Now they go back to the Star Factory and they can do a lot of work to get that thing ready to go. Hopefully for block 2 of the booster. Again, we're currently still in block 1 boosters. Okay, they still had block 1 boosters kind of hanging out, but they didn't have block 1 ships left. We are to block 2 ships, block 1 boosters. I mean, I would assume the assumption is that the block 2 ships or boosters will start to appear mid this year or early next year if I really have to gamble on it. But let's get down to business on this, and let's talk about the hardware currently present using being used for flight 7 of Starship. um, Booster 14, again, a Block 1 booster, has been rolled to the launch site and lifted onto the launch mount. The guiding pins that sit onto the launch mount have been removed. That is generally a sign that that booster is not coming back off of the mount unless it launches. The guiding pins help to alleviate damage to the Raptor engines while it's being put on the OLM, and they have been removed. So the assumption to that is that booster will not be removed from the OLM again. They also have armed the flight termination system on the booster. So booster 14 does have its FTS system installed and ready to go. For those of you who don't remember what the FTS does, it essentially is a dynamite charge on the side of the vehicle that will explode in the event that the ship or in the event of the vehicle essentially going off course or doing something that is deemed unsafe by SpaceX or by ground support. Generally, that charge lies in between the liquid nitrogen and liquid oxygen tanks, and when it's told to go, which either it can be by the flight director or by the automated system, whether or not either of those things happen, it'll detonate in between those two tanks. The two liquids will merge. They don't like each other. They go big bang bang. So that is how the flight termination system works. That has been armed and is ready to go. Um, Booster 14 will feature one reused Raptor engine coming off of Booster 12, which is the one that returned to launch site on October 13th of last year. So, this will be the very, very, very first time that SpaceX has reused a piece of hardware from a Starship or from a super heavy booster in another launch. So, this vehicle will have one reused Raptor V2 engine. The tower also has two new radar sensors to improve communications between the tower and Booster 14. This is in order to alleviate the situation that happened last time, where they essentially deemed that it was okay to bring the booster back to the launch site in order to do the catch. And then partway through, they decided that that was not safe anymore because they had issues establishing communication between the vehicle and the pad. So, this is essentially to prevent that situation from happening. And they've taken extra precautions on the booster and on the launch mount to make sure that those things don't get damaged during liftoff of Starship and the Super Heavy booster. Um, when it comes to the booster, to B14, the restricted catch attempt rules are still in play. It's like the Jordan rules from back in the day where everybody has to guard Jordan. Same exact thing here, right? Where everything has to be completely correct in order for that booster to get caught. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know where that metaphor was going. Glad that that worked out for us all. Um, so, as prior, the flight director had to approve the descent back to the pad, as well as the automated system. Now they've added another failsafe, which is a redundancy, and it is a second approval from the flight director to make sure that there is absolute clearing for this thing to happen. So essentially, it has to be a yes from the onboard, and then two yeses from the flight director and the crew, essentially at Boca Chica. It's just gonna make sure that the pad doesn't get blown up. They're not ready with pad B yet. They don't want to take any risks at this point, and I don't blame them for that. So with that being said, that is exactly what's happening right now. Is they're making sure that the redundancies are in place to keep their pad absolutely safe and ready to go. On to the next page of the notes. Let's talk about Ship 33, which, uh, as of recording, is sitting at the launch site. As of these notes, it had not yet rolled out, but late last night, on the it would have been borderline midnight, 8th into 9th, they did a rollout, and it is currently at Starbase, or yeah, at the launch site, but it has not been stacked yet. No full stack as of right now. Um, there are several upgrades that SpaceX has talked about with the Block 2 Ship 33. Let's just kind of dig into them. We'll talk about kind of what this means and what it looks like as we go through them. So, number one, the forward flaps have been reduced in size and moved towards the tip of the vehicle and away from the heat shield, which significantly reduces the exposure to the reentry heating. Essentially, what that's talking about is the fact that the hinges on the flaps have been proven to be a weak point during reentry, and they want to avoid having that as a spot that the heat can penetrate through the hinges and then into the physical vehicle itself. So they have moved them and shrunk them and gotten them away from where the direct reentry heat should be in order to keep the vehicle just that much safer. There's also been, as I mentioned earlier, a 25% increase in propellant volume. They have done vacuum jacketing for feed lines, a new fuel system for the Raptor vacuum engines, the RVAC engines, and an improved propulsion avionics module controlling the vehicle valves and reading sensors, all of which add additional vehicle performance and the ability to fly for longer missions. So all the things that I just named off are all bits and pieces that they're doing to try to be able to extend these missions longer and longer. Again, the end game for SpaceX has been and always will be Mars. So they're going to try to make sure that their systems are completely ready to go and can get to Mars. These little tests here, like obviously he wants to do point to point and stuff here. That's going to be one of those things for Starship. But at least as of right now, what they're doing is they're definitely trying to extend the lifetime and the life cycles of these vehicles. Ship 33's heat shield will also use the latest generation of tiles and include a backup layer to protect for missing and damaged tiles. The backup layer is an ablative material for heat protection. Essentially, if you look at it, there's multiple layers of padding. Is how the word I'll use is padding, and one of those is an ablative material, which is a heat resistant material that sits behind where the tiles sit. They've added a double layer of that essentially. So now they have all that much more protection from the heat should there be failures to any of the heat tiles, whether they fall off or are damaged during the flight. During this flight, they're also going to be testing multiple different types of tiles, including one that is self-cooling and stuff like that. This is going to be probably to determine whether or not they switch away from what they're currently using in future missions, or if the one that they're using is the one that they need to stick with. Um, They've also changed the flight computer, so it has a more powerful flight computer, upgraded antennas featuring Starlink, GNSS, and a backup RF comm function. I am not a technician on any of this, so I have no idea what each individual system that I just named off does. Between Starlink, which obviously does internet connectivity and stuff like that, data transfers essentially. And then I don't know what GNSS and the backup RF communication functions do, but uh, the new powerful upgraded system is designed to have all of those functional at one time. It has more cameras. I think the number that I saw was 30 total, which man, Elon wants some glory shots of this one. He wants to see everything. And honestly, who blames him, right? And they've integrated smart batteries and power units as well. Probably again looking to store more energy, use more energy, be able to function for longer is going to be the moral to all of these stories. They have about 120 megabytes per second of real time data that now can be sent to engineers to better understand what is happening during the flight. So they've upgraded those systems in order to make sure that they can understand what is happening with the vehicle at any given moment. That's great because we've obviously seen small issues occur stagnant throughout the flight, and they want to make sure that they know at all times what is happening to their vehicle. It'll definitely help for the longevity of the future flights. And this is one of those things I've said in multiple videos before, but when Elon has an error or has an accident happen or something along those lines, he always finds a way to make sure that it doesn't happen the next time. Him and a team of absolutely amazing people. Because people can say whatever they want about Elon politically. I have my opinions as well, but Elon is still the absolute circus leader of SpaceX, and he has put in charge some people who absolutely know what they're doing and can correct errors on the fly, so that the next flight you don't see or experience those exact same issues. Um, so, all of these things, all these upgrades that I've now mentioned, are all in effort to make the flights more reliable, make the vehicle more reliable, and to extend the life of the flights so that they can do longer journeys. Again, assumingly to the red planet eventually. One of the things that they have now mentioned is that there will be a test deployment of simulated Starlinks coming up. So Ship 33 will deploy 10 Starlink simulators, similar in size and weight to the next gen of Starship or of Starlink satellites. These simulators will be on the same orbital trajectory as Starship, which is intended to splash down once again in the Indian Ocean. So they're going to finally use the payload bay. They have already put the Starlink simulators in prior to lifting the vehicle, so they are ready to go. Um, and then they will essentially stagger them out as they do currently with the Starlink missions on Falcon 9, and that will be another test cycle that they run this time, essentially to test the deployment technology on the vehicle. They will also attempt to relight a single Raptor engine in space again. They've been doing that. They did it last time. They tried it once really early, and then they had to abort away from it. But it has happened. So that one is not of any surprise. When it came to the vehicle tiles, they have again removed some specifically from around the vehicle in order to test how it will function during a catch attempt and also to see whether or not there are any weak or stressed out points during reentry of the vehicle. The reentry profile obviously is very similar to previous tests. Indian Ocean is the target for Ship 33. Back at the pad is going to be the target for Booster 14, or into the Gulf of Mexico if not everything clicks the way that they want it to. That is all the new information. We are essentially in a countdown to launch at this point. I can actually find exactly how long as of right now that it looks like this will be. Right now we are sitting at T minus 96 hours, 31 minutes, and 5 seconds to the possible launch of Starship for IFT 7. It is on the horizon. They are pumping them out faster and faster and faster, and they want to get these things done. And I don't think it's just them. I think it's NASA as well, who is trying to advance the Artemis program. There has been another delay with the Artemis program, I think until 2027. But they want to do it. And I mean, I think I've already started hearing arguments. There's a chance that Artemis doesn't even happen, and that the moon mission kind of just transfers into some, a different program that's happening, essentially still between SpaceX and NASA with the HLS, the Human Landing Systems. So we'll see kind of as time goes on. But as of right now, there is a ton of activity happening down at Starbase in Boca Chica, Texas. If you guys want to see that stuff live, I recommend them every single time I do a space episode. But please go check out NASA Spaceflight. They have a 24/7 live camera down at Starbase. They have a bunch of cameras, but the feed is running 24/7. They also have one on the Space Coast, which would be for Florida, which is awesome, and one at the McGregor testing site. So you can see things like the Raptor 3 RUD happen. All good resources if you guys are interested in seeing more and more space content. And if you're not interested in searching outside the box, I'm going to start being here a little bit more frequently so that we can talk about the new comings and goings of SpaceX and Starship. And tomorrow, there's a chance we get a New Glenn launch, which will be Blue Origin's first flight of the New Glenn vehicle. We look forward to a lot of that. Again, lots of information on that over on NASA spaceflight. Uh, Again, guys, thank you so very much for tuning in. I do appreciate it. I am very sorry that there's kind of always these staggered little breaks in between my videos, but there will be more videos coming. This pad is not empty. There are more on the horizon. I have more planned probably in the coming days, including one that would need a new intro video, like I said earlier, and I'm looking very forward to giving you guys all of that. So, thank you very much for tuning in. Go check out all the socials: Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Threads, X, all of them. Go check them out. Go like, follow, share, and subscribe. And come back here to Introverse Uncharted, where we can just have all the fun talking about all the fun stuff. Thank you so very much for tuning in. And remember to do more than simply exist and come with me into the Uncharted. See you guys soon.
Mission sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.